Welcome back, everyone. I think you're really going to enjoy this interview. It's no secret that we're very involved locally in arts and education and the environment and politics. And what we discovered here in our community is that the true sense of what politics means and what our democracy means is really proved by the way people approach wanting to get involved in public service. And the reason I said you're going to enjoy this is I met somebody who I really think embodies what I just said. This is Tim Holmes, and he's a Republican candidate for the mayor of Saratoga. Welcome, Tim. Very nice to meet you.
Thank you.
And I say this to any candidate, what's wrong with you that you want to run for political office? You know what I mean? If you look at the national scene these days and just how divisive it can be and whatever, and just from the moment I met you, you're just the complete opposite, So tell me, why do you want to run?
Well, Jesse, I regard running for office here as a civic service rather than politics. And there's politics in every venue, every organization, we know that. But the civic service side is that we might do some good for the community.
When I was reading your bio, Tim, I noticed that there was a certain thread that was going through it. And I don't know if I can articulate this the way I would like, but you have a real sense of the world. And I think that's got something to do with your experience when you were young, right?
Yes, that's true. I grew up the son of a diplomat, and we traveled after I was born in New York. We traveled to live in Africa and in Japan, and so early on I was exposed to the challenges of thinking about big problems and how to deal with them.
Also there is a perspective, and I'm sure any of you would agree with me. If you've traveled, you get to see other cultures. You might learn another language. You might see what the history of a certain people might be. And whether you're conscious of it or not, you absorb this, right, don't you?
Yes, and it's a great experience. Today I think that the upcoming generations have greater access to cultural absorption, and that's very good. It adds to understanding and to good thinking about new ways of living and finding solutions to problems.
When I was reading your platform, I noticed it was very refreshing, Tim, to see that there was no attack. There was no sense of trying to degrade the other candidates involved or whatever. It was really positioned as though you had certain things that you want to concentrate on, and we'll talk about these in a second. But it wasn't about ridicule. It was really about change or improving. And there's an interesting background on this. So first, tell me why do you see the responsibility that you're trying to undertake as one where you really work off of the successes of the past and try to change and improve what you know?
Right. Well, Jesse, firstly, I would say that I respect anyone who steps up to be involved in public life, because it takes a certain resiliency and creativity to do that.
That's right.
And people who bring their ideas and their energy should be admired. And I appreciate all those who are serving now and those who will come forward, and I believe that they're due the utmost respect. So that's the basis of being, opens the possibility of working with anyone and everybody. So that in itself is a piece of growth that we can all welcome. The reason for stepping up is that I became so fascinated with the history of Saratoga Springs, and I think you're an aficionado of that as well, that this is a singular place. Its history is fascinating, it's exciting. Looking back over the different epochs that it's gone through. And now that we are in the 21st century, we have arrived at a point of growth and a rate of growth that is all new. So we enjoy the past, we embrace the best parts of it, we like to color our lives with it. At the same time, to succeed in the 21st century, we and our succeeding generations need to be able to cope in a 21st century way. So that involves higher qualities of planning the next steps for growth, that we have the resources and the capacities, and also to bring in the best of what can be brought in this century for upcoming generations.
Boy, that's really well said. I just want to deviate just for a second because Tim referenced a book. Tim wrote this, I assume, with the help of Libby, his wife, who's sitting over there. Is a brief history of Saratoga. This is a remarkable book, and I can only paraphrase. Those who don't learn from history, right? You know where I'm going with that. But to have such a really detailed knowledge of the changes that this city has gone through. You know, when we started, I mentioned to Tim, my wife and I moved here early 70s. We saw that change as it was really starting to gain traction.
Yes.
And you look at Broadway today, or you look at Saratoga today, and you can't believe it. So much of what you're saying is really so important when you try to say, what could I contribute, as a leader?
Right. And the positive way of expressing what you just referred to is that we can learn from history.
Right.
And one of the great things about Saratoga Springs is the way that it has reinvented itself several times over the last 200 years, 210 years roughly since Gideon Putnam got his really first good hotel up. Which was considered a ludicrous venture in the middle of these woods way up here. But it succeeded, and so did many other longer shot propositions that have come through Saratoga Springs. But what was happening after World War II was that all of the previous systems, including the big hotels, the reliance on gambling as an industry, and other amenities that were appealing to visitors had gone out of style or obsolete.
That's right.
And so the people came back from World War II, the men who fought there and came back full of pride and energy at the success of World War II and the victory, to see the city in decline. And they rolled up their sleeves and said, what can we do about this? And so they set about to gather community leaders of all types and all stripes, visionaries really, to undertake a plan of action, and you saw it in action when you moved here.
Now, fast forward, today, taking that base of knowledge, and just really it's wonderful, your own personal perspective on this is really interesting, Tim. Let's talk about your platform, okay? I noticed that you, and it surprised me a bit, but I thought it was very smart. You were saying, let's take the success that we've had in the city and let's improve our relationship with the county.
Yes.
Can you tell me a bit more about why you chose that as kind of your lead on your platform and what you'd like to do?
Well, that occurred to me when I was exploring the political landscape earlier this year, when I saw there was an opportunity to offer myself as a candidate for an office. I realized that over the last 20 years, the relationship of the city and the county was benefiting less and less from what the two levels of government can do together. And that if we can restore that, then we can plan with the county for the kind of growth that the whole county is undergoing. We can share resources that the county has that makes it possible for us to work with more than just self-reliance. And then we can coordinate this city's leadership in the county as the jewel of the county, and assisting other parts of the county to move ahead as well. Two examples. One is, how do we deal with the homeless situation? It's actually a county responsibility. It may not be necessary for the city to take it on as a permanent responsibility for the city alone to become an attraction for all homeless people from the county to come to, if the county is able and willing to share the cost and the facilitation of solutions there.
Yeah, sure.
And another one is looking forward. we are in a technological revolution going on. One of the gems of the county now is Global Foundries, and the many similarly based technical companies that have followed it into Saratoga
Either
County.
supported or, right, sure.
Luther Forest County did a tremendous job, and the Economic Development Commission did a great job bringing Global Foundries in. It's a leader in its field. It's got a bright future in the 21st century, and it's clean, super efficient, top global skills industry, which our upcoming generations of students and people who are reorganizing their lives for new careers might look to as a path to take. So I feel that Saratoga Springs, in partnering with other county entities, can be a leader in that.
We'd assume then, it would follow that there's got to be a certain amount of planning.
Planning is the key.
Yes, okay, good. So in that regard, what have you thought about there in terms of planning?
Well, we have a few practical considerations when we begin to plan. One is infrastructure, and two is capacities. Let's look at some very basic elements like roads and traffic, or water systems, fresh water and wastewater, or natural water and how to handle it, especially if we're going to have a little bit more in the future, as seems to be indicated. So, just as in any good house that we're in, the better it's planned, the more excellent it is. And it's the same with municipal growth. So I feel that if the city can get with the supervisors that run the
right,
county,
sure.
We can work together to continue Saratoga County as the most excellent county.
Right, you made a comment earlier. It said, what happens here is important, that it matters. And, it's really true. I mean, many people constantly talk about the fact that something very special goes on here in Saratoga and Saratoga Springs. And maybe it's the waters and maybe it's geology and whatever. But it just really seems to attract talented people. And then the responsibility on the side of anyone who's in public service is to make certain that it's planned for properly and that the vision includes and incorporates all of the resources available to make that happen. And that always seems important to me. One last thing, Tim. I've seen in reading about your materials a word that doesn't exist today in politics: ethics.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, how about that?
How about that? So, I get a real sense that concerns you.
It does. It's just real life. And so, as in the rest of our life, we need to conduct ourselves with the highest possible standards. And, I respect some of the incumbents for living this way too and believing in these things. So that to go forward with continued standards of ethics and responsibility and accountability and transparency to the public is very important. It's essential here. And we're at a point of growth now where, as we see elsewhere in bigger cities or other parts of the country, some bigger money is beginning to show up. And I just want to be sure that everybody remembers their first pledge, which is to the residents and the voters and taxpayers of the city, and to not get distracted by other
the usual things that seem to
show
happen.
So I
don't know why I'm laughing. I don't think
continue.
it's very funny, but sometimes you do that just to sort of, you shake your head sometimes. But I think it's wonderful what you stand for. I think you have a very, very interesting background.
Thank you.
And I want to wish you the best in the campaign. And thank you for the opportunity to come over and talk with you. Is there a website people could go to if they want to know more?
There is.
What is it?
It's timholmesformayor.com.
Well, that makes sense.
timholmesformayor.com.
Yeah. timholmesformayor.com. And again, thank you very much for taking the time to
Thank
meet.
you,
Best of luck
Jesse.
to you.
It's been a great pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See this interview again. You can head to our website, looktvonline.com.